quarterback.
I think that's not even a question. 5 minutes, golly.
Man, I thought we was going hot.
Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so type the laces. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Network. We on top of our game. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays.
Man, I thought we was going to do the other one. Freddie threw me off there. What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Glad to have y'all here on this lovely, lovely, lovely Monday night. Had a huge weekend of sports. And, we're going to get to it, give you that real talk as only we can. But first, let's see how everybody doing. Freddie, how we doing tonight?
Man, I'm here. I'm good. Just ready. Glad to be back with the crew. Just ready to talk some sports and just ready to get it.
Good. Glad to have you. I know you was playing hurt last week, but you sound a lot better, look a little better. So we definitely glad to have you. Mike, what's going on, brother?
Living, man. I'm thriving, man. Waiting on my Chicago Sky free agency, seeing how that's gonna rock. Other than that, I met my head coach and my GM today, so I'm liking what I'm hearing. I'm liking what they got going on. So we'll see what happens, but all is well.
Okay, we might have to get some inside information out of you here coming shortly. You got the Inside Connect, so we look forward to you bringing that to this network as well. And Coach Kenny, how we doing, man?
Oh, good, man. Good. Long week last week. Sorry I missed shows, but I'm back. Glad to be back and always ready to talk sports.
Absolutely. We definitely had some sports to talk about. I don't know if you were as excited as I was about what we went through this past weekend, but man, football did it again. It was a tough act to follow, but I thought they followed it up pretty well. Had two really big games. Maybe some people put some demons to bed, and some others let them rise from the dead. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our hot takes. We'll start with you, Coach Kenny. What's your hot take?
So my hot take is that Eric Bieniemy will be passed over again for head coach in this next coaching cycle, and the narrative is going to be because the offense didn't get the job done in the second half of the AFC Championship game. I just think that they've been trying to really. They haven't really been putting respect on Eric Bieniemy's name throughout these last 2 years, and so I just think this is just going to be another excuse that they're going to use to pass him over for these head coach openings that are currently available. Like right now, we had 3 already that's already been filled, and there's not been one minority hired. So I just think it's going to be the same thing over and the same thing again. So okay. That's my hot take.
Cool. I like it. And with that being said, do you think that it's a Bieniemy issue or is it a minority issue? I know you brought up that no minorities have been hired.
I think it's a little bit of both. Right. So I think he's going to fall under that category, and I think, like I said, the narrative is going to be because I think it was last year they said that the narrative was that he didn't interview well. So now I think that this year this will be the new narrative for him.
But I guess, and I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing. I just feel like I haven't heard his name talked about at all. I haven't seen him on the final list of anybody even before. So if people are to use that excuse, it's going to be hard for me to digest it just because I haven't heard him talked about as a favorite or even a final candidate for any jobs. I don't think he's got any second interviews. So I agree with you. I think we may be going through this again or revisiting this next year because I believe Kansas City will be there and they're going to score points, and hopefully maybe next year it'll be a little different. Mike, what do you got? What's your hot take?
Hold on. I want to speak on that real quick.
Oh, good.
We actually just got done talking about it on Bring It. And one other thing that's going to hurt him is that he needs to get out of Kansas City. He needs to go be offensive coordinator for the Steelers or somewhere like that. It's because that stigma of Matt Nagy being there, going around and seeing that it's going to kind of holding him back as well.
Yeah.
So we need to see him go somewhere else and be off an OC there, and then we'll believe he'll get a job as well.
Right.
Let me push back on that though, because look at Kellen Moore's out here getting interviews for head coach openings. He's only been an offensive coordinator for 2 years. We lost in the first round of the playoffs this year, but he's out here getting interviews and getting second interviews. So
Right.
I don't think he should have to do that.
I think it's different too because Nagy was there for a very short period of time, and he really did use the name brand of Andy Reid. Whereas Eric Bieniemy actually has something to build off of. He could say, my quarterback won an MVP. He won a Super Bowl. We've been to 2 Super Bowls and 4 straight AFC championships.
Absolutely.
Matt Nagy didn't have anything like. What were you going to say? I worked with Alex Smith. That wasn't enough. So he had to solely say, I worked with Andy Reid, where Eric Bieniemy actually has, 4 AFC championships, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 championship, and the MVP. I don't think he should have to go anywhere else to prove it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
He's what in my opinion, he's what Matt Nagy thought he was. But I don't know.
I mean, Josh McDaniels is looking to get a job, and we saw what that New England offense looked like this year. So,
right. Well, we saw what Josh McDaniels looked like by himself too.
We did.
Exactly. Like he already failed in his first opportunity as being a head coach, so now it looks like he's going to get another opportunity in Oakland.
Back in the same division.
Yeah.
But Mike, what you got for your hot take?
It's toxic, bro. It's toxic because it's my guy. I've been rooting for him before the wild card even happened. I said I was wrong. I should have stuck with my gut. I was Stafford season all year, but Green Bay got in my head. So I let them corrupt me. But I did say from the jump, Bengals are going to the Super Bowl. I almost picked Chiefs. I went on Touchdown Crew and I said I was picking the Chiefs, but I had a late change of heart and I doubled down on what I've been saying all year. I love what Joey B is doing, but I'm going to say this. I still think he's the second best quarterback that comes out of that draft class when it's all said and done. I think Justin Herbert is still going to be miles ahead of him. I think he's just in a better situation than Justin right now. And he's taking, obviously he's taking advantage of a lot of opportunities over there. And that's no knock on Joey. I just think when it's all said and done, I think we will be praising Justin Herbert more than we praise Joey Burrow. But I still love Joey. I got mad love for Joey. The only one I hate from that class is Tua, and I will stand and I will die on that hill.
Let me ask you a question, Mike. So, if you had to pick the 2 supporting cast or the 2 skill position units in terms of Cincinnati or LA or the Chargers, who would you take?
When you say you mean from a defensive
perspective? I'm saying if I'm talking, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends.
Right.
Between
I think Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's what, so. I think the reason I ask it because I think it's going to be hard,
right,
for Herbert unless they upgrade his
right.
weapons. I think it's going to be hard for him to pass him.
Here's my thing about that. First, Eckler and Allen are 2 amazing guys.
But they are, but they both
you have
Slater.
Rashawn Slater is a Pro Bowler now in his first or second year. So that's really impressive to see your right tackle already be a Pro Bowler in his first year. So I'm excited for what they're building. Cincinnati didn't really do anything though, and I've said it all year. Defensively, I mean the Bears beat Cincinnati, but it's definitely something you have to look at. And I said it off rip. The biggest thing about Cincinnati is they are not a regular season team when it comes to that defense. The guys they brought in from free agency were all battle tested in the playoffs. And that's where I even said it on Touchdown Crew, where they might be down is when you see them in the first half. But that second half, I believe in that Cincinnati defense because they have been there before, not with Cincinnati, but they've all been there in their own rights. They've all been there on championship winning caliber football teams. They've all been in that situation. They went into that second half and they performed very well because they were all equipped to adjust. And that's where I felt like they would be great. So you really, to me, and I've preached it for years, You don't need Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and Leonard Floyd, these name brand, even Clay Matthews at one point. You don't need these name brand guys. You just need battle-tested guys and a couple good pieces that are young and quick and can keep up with others. That's what makes a good defense. So I think the Chargers can do that very quickly. Whether they'll do it or not, I have no idea. But that was my biggest thing about the Bengals and why they can adjust as quick as they do is because these guys have been there before. You just don't know their names. I don't know.
And just kind of quick, Kenny, to your point, you were talking about the coaching hires. It looks like the Vikings are flying out John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, to meet Wednesday for their head coach vacancy. So we might have a new hire, and it will not be a minority.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
what's up, Joe?
What up, dog?
Jim's valid, though. You know what I mean? Like,
it's not, and this is not so much. The one that would get me is, and I got to keep it 100, and I'm a Cowboys fan. Like, if Kellen Moore gets a job, I'm going to have an issue with that.
Right.
Like, if he gets a job before Eric Bieniemy, like, I'm going to really have an issue with that because his resume, the two resumes don't compare. They're not even close. So if he gets a job before Eric Bieniemy, I'm just gonna have a real problem with that.
And I think to that point, and I don't know, I'm not gonna say they're colluding, but I don't feel like there's been a bunch out. There haven't been a ton of just huge shocks, people from out of nowhere, like when Joe Judge and Detroit's coach and some of these other people got hired. Like, where the heck did they come from? A lot of these are kind of retread names, so if that's any solace. But I agree, the fact that he's not even getting a final interview or in the consideration. I think Flores is not in the Texans' final consideration from what I saw. Like, I don't get it. But Freddie, you built it up and hyped it up. So I was gonna save you for last, but I'm gonna go ahead and get to you before we get to Joe. What do you got for your hot take?
So we're gonna play a round the table game with this hot take because I got a couple questions I want to ask everybody on this Monday. So I'm going to compare two resumes. I'm not going to tell you the person's name or anything like that. You got to pick one. Person A.
Wait, can you start over? I wasn't listening. I'm sorry.
So I'm about to go over two resumes. I'm not going to tell you the person's names. I'm just going to tell you what they has accomplished. And you got to tell me which resume would you take. Resume A. They've been to the playoffs 7 times. They 5-2. They have attempted 132 passes and completed 80 completions. Okay, that's 60%. That's decent. Resume B. They've been to the playoffs 4 times. They have a 1-3 record. They've attempted,
I know where he's going with this.
146 passes and completed 89%. Percentage 60%.
I already know where you're going with this.
Yeah, I know where you're going with it too.
Are y'all taking resume A or resume B?
I'm taking B because I know A is Jimmy Garoppolo for sure.
Hello.
Right.
And B is Dak Prescott.
Hey, I'm taking Jimmy G over Dak Prescott.
Never.
And all the man to do is win.
Never.
They win in spite of him, not because of him.
In spite.
Hey,
there's a difference.
Dak Prescott get paid all this money to do the same thing Jimmy G do. One thing I can say about Jimmy G, he'll go to the playoffs. He went to the Super Bowl. He was yet again another game away from the Super Bowl.
He didn't do nothing to get there. He didn't do nothing.
Let me ask you something. Freddie. Name one play that he made in the playoffs that made a difference. Just one.
Yesterday, I will say this.
That's easy.
I will say this. Yesterday, the first 3 quarters,
I should say in a positive manner, not in a negative.
There you go.
In the first 3 quarters, this man looked decent. He was throwing the ball. I said, "Okay, Jimmy G.
Didn't.
Okay."
He should have had more turnovers than that.
Well,
John Morant just got an and one to tie the game with 7 seconds left. He got a free throw to try and put him up. My bad.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. He still did his thing in the first 3 quarters. I would just wait and said, okay, in the fourth quarter, Jimmy G, change the narrative. You would make my hot take even hotter. Change the narrative. But he didn't do that. But at the end of the day, I'm taking Jimmy G. He's cheaper than Dak Prescott. Hey, I don't care. I'm riding on him.
Isn't he about to be up for a deal? So,
that's why the Giants will remain a mediocre franchise.
He's still going to be cheaper than Dak Prescott.
You're saying at given Dak's deal, because Jimmy's better, you would pay Jimmy more than Dak?
No. I said I would take Jimmy because Dak is way too expensive for a guy that's only 1-3 in his playoff career, has not been able to get it done. And hey, let's be honest, the Cowboys have had way more weapons than the 49ers have.
So Jimmy G or Aaron Rodgers? Because Aaron Rodgers is 0-4 in the NFC Championship.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he did something that Jimmy G couldn't do.
Ray, let me correct that. Since I've been 11 years old, Aaron Rodgers is 0-4 in the NFC Championship.
But guess what, Mike? Something that Jimmy G haven't done. Jimmy G went to the Super Bowl. He lost. Rodgers been the one. He won one.
Jimmy has won a Super Bowl.
We're not.
That's a hard reach.
Yeah, we're not doing.
Not a reach at all. He's got a ring on his finger. Yeah.
We're not.
He was a big part. He was a big part of how they got there, right?
We're not doing that.
All right, we can set that aside. Don't do that, Mike.
You're
better than that. You're better than that.
But was Rodgers a big part of why they won the Super Bowl?
He had a good Super Bowl. He had a pretty good Super Bowl, I thought.
Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah,
all right.
Exactly.
Who else they gonna give it to? Come on now, we know how the league works. Didn't
Deion Brand put one with Brady on the field?
He did.
Let me tell you something, Ray. Let me tell you something.
So,
Ray.
Freddie, are you picking? So you would pick. So that means you would pick Jimmy G over Aaron Rodgers too, then, right?
Why is
Since
that?
he hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs.
No, because Aaron Rodgers have won one Super Bowl. Jimmy G been to the Super Bowl.
I'm talking about in recent memory, he has not gotten it done in the playoffs. You just said Dak hasn't gotten it done in the playoffs.
I give him one better, guys. I give him one better because Aaron Rodgers did win a Super Bowl. So, and a Super Bowl MVP. By Freddie's logic, he would take Jimmy G over Josh Allen. Because Josh Allen has not been able to get it done, according to.
And he got a. You right, Joe. You are right, sir.
So you would take Jimmy G over Josh Allen?
No, because Josh Allen has what record in the play? What's Josh Allen record in the playoffs? 2-2?
I think so.
It's 500.
So you would take Josh.
But he has
Jimmy G over Josh Allen because Jimmy G
has a better record.
Jimmy G has led his team to the Super Bowl, right? So you would take him over Josh Allen, even though Josh Allen has thrown 14 touchdowns and 1 interception in the playoffs.
Who's been to a Super Bowl more recently, Jimmy G or Aaron Rodgers?
Jimmy G.
Josh Allen has never been.
Josh Allen's 3-3 in the playoffs, by the way.
So you would take Jimmy G over him.
What'd you say his record was, Freddie?
I would take Josh Allen because his talent is so good.
But he can't get it done, though. What good is talent?
So if his talent is so good, are you telling me that you're saying that Jimmy G's talent is better than Dak Prescott's talent?
Back him into a corner here.
Back him into a corner. So, and God forbid I got to help Freddie here. I think when you factor in salary, when you compare Dak and Jimmy, I think that's a difference. You don't get that advantage with Josh Allen. It's actually the reverse because he's way cheaper still. Oh, no, he got paid.
Yeah, Allen got paid.
But he's younger. He has shown that he can take you there. So the Josh Allen thing's a joke. But the Jimmy G Dak thing, and I said this before, and y'all was trying to kill me when I said Taylor Heineke was the best quarterback in NFC East, which he's only got.
We're not going over that.
Keep in mind, he had a winning record against Tom Brady in the regular season, just for the record. But that's not what we're talking about.
Keep in mind, Jalen Hurts was the only one.
2 games. We'll let you live.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I don't know why we're spending this much time on Jimmy G. He won't be in San Francisco. He cost him that game. He wasn't great. much of any of the game, and that should be the end of it. Freddie, don't come on here with these ludicrous takes, trying to back us into a corner by talking about a guy, by talking about one guy that was one and done and another guy that should have been one and done. Like, we don't need to waste time on it. The people are here to talk about the greatness of this weekend, not the mediocrity. So, with that being said, Joe, what's your hot take?
Hot take, man. It ain't that hot, but the Trey Lance era begins in San Francisco. Jimmy G's out of there. They on the phone talking to trade partners right now, seeing what we can get from him. And hopefully we can get something nice for him. I doubt we get too much for him because the world saw what he has to offer, which is not much. As far as him being a winner, I don't buy that, man. He got carried to those wins. The Niners won the NFC Championship game against the Packers. He had 6 completions for 77 yards. And then you're talking about he led the Niners to the Super Bowl with 6 completions for 77 yards? Are you kidding me? No way. When he's put in a position to have to win the game, not even have to win the game, just make a play, he couldn't even do it.
He did. He made a play for the other team.
Right. His last in the fourth quarter game, he was 1 for 6 for -8 yards. That was his stats in the fourth quarter yesterday. 1 for 6, -8 yards. Oh, and I forgot the interception. But anyway, like you say, moving on. The hot take is not really that much of a hot take, but that should have been his last play, his last pass in the 49ers uniform, because I believe the Trey Lance era has begun in San Francisco. They put a lot on the line. They traded a lot up to move up to get him, and it's time now.
Joe, can I ask you why?
Why what?
Like, why is it time? What has Trey shown that he's ready? Because I love Trey. I love Trey and everything he did in college, but what I've seen so far, if you have one more year of Jimmy on that deal and no one's really willing to give you anything for him, I wouldn't rush Trey into it because he really doesn't look as ready as everyone thinks he is.
He sat a whole season. So,
right. I mean, there were spurts where he did play and he did.
Yeah, but it's one thing from having spurts and it's one thing from having this. You got a whole season under your belt. Right. Now you got a whole off season under your belt. Then you're going into training camp knowing that you're the guy. You know what I'm saying? That's something different than just, okay, Jimmy's out this week. Trey, you're in. You know, let's get you in first team reps this week. You know, it's something different from when you going off in the whole summer knowing that you're the guy. It's got to be something different. And if you put Jimmy G back in there, he's just a lame duck quarterback at this point. Like, you know.
Right.
Nah, it's Trey Lance time. Let's go. And I'm not even I didn't even think they should have drafted Trey Lance. You know, I wasn't a big Trey Lance guy myself. But, I mean, at this point, he can't do any worse than what Jimmy has shown us.
Right.
I think the key there to Joe's point is reps in practice could go a long way. And I don't know how many reps with the ones Trey got. And I think he would definitely be an added benefit to their run game, which is already really good.
Mm-hmm.
So once they inputted Debo kind of as a running back more so, or as much as a receiver, I think that'll give Trey even more options with bootlegs and option reads and stuff. Right. Imagine running the option with Lance and Debo. Like that I think could be
those RPOs can be serious.
Could be something. And then they can go get, he'll build rapport with Kittle. They can go draft another wide receiver, maybe a possession guy, a guy that can move the chains, that since you don't necessarily want him throwing the ball down the field, holding it for long periods of time.
I think you already got that in IU.
We got that. That.
I'd agree with that. I didn't know him a lot going into this year, but the times I saw him, I was impressed. He played really well.
The kid fights, man. The kid, he's got some fight in him.
So that's what I got.
There it is, Robert. You nailed it.
But that's the thing. When you're a game manager, you're not supposed to make those mistakes. And that pass he threw that hit Ramsey in the chest that should have ended the game, that's not game managing. Like he, even in the game against Green Bay, he tried to give those games away. Game managers are people
Dallas
that
too.
Dallas too are people that aren't putting you in danger. Like they just even kill. And I think that's what we saw. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but out of Mahomes. I think Mahomes in the second half tried to be a game manager and he wouldn't pull the trigger and he was inaccurate and their whole flow was off. But Jimmy G to me isn't even a game manager because he will blow the game time and time again. You just got to be able to catch the ball.
I think his title is game manager, but that doesn't mean he does it well. You know what I mean? Like, if you were to describe him in any way at this stage of his career, you're calling him a game manager. That doesn't mean like Matt Nagy as a head coach. Like that might be your title, but that's not what you're good at. That's not what you do. You know what I mean? So I think that's what I would describe Jimmy as. But he is a poor man's general at that.
Yesterday was Jimmy G's 5th straight game with an interception. So,
I mean, yeah, but
ain't no but. I mean, interception.
I see plenty of guys do it though. You know what I mean? So it's like at the end of the day,
but when you're going and you're trying to win a win in the playoffs, you can't. I mean, like, and that goes to show that they were winning in spite of him. Like he was killing us.
Right, but I mean, I look at like I'm a big Matthew Stafford guy. I have been since I'm a kid. But like, if I look at Matthew Stafford throughout the year, I'm counting like 10 games straight he threw an interception. How many games straight he threw a pick six? Like it happens.
Yeah, how many games straight that he put up, 200-300 yards with 3-4 touchdowns.
But that's what I'm saying is though, like with the interception,
that's risk versus reward versus with Stafford. We're just getting the risk with Jimmy G. There is no reward.
The production, if you get the production, it overweighs. It offsets.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is like the only
you're not getting that production.
Right. The only reason that's the only reason we're talking about it is because Jimmy can't produce. If Jimmy produced, no one would bring that up at all.
But he doesn't produce, so that's why we.
No, that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. Like the interceptions to me aren't a problem. It's the fact that you can't score the ball. That's the problem.
It's a problem when you can't score the ball and you're throwing the interceptions. That's the problem.
But even in that, Mike, I look at what Jameis did 2 years ago. He was putting up 5,000 yards and threw 30 plus touchdowns. But when you got 30 picks. At a certain point,
Ray, I love you, but that was the biggest reach I've ever heard you say on a show ever. 30 picks.
Interceptions don't matter, but you need to score more points.
I'm saying he was one interception a game doesn't matter to me that much. 30 in a season, that's crazy.
If you're a run first team and you're turning the ball over every game, like I feel like you're asking for a lot.
No, for sure.
James did have 30 turnovers.
30.
My man, doing big things. ESPN 30 for 30. But to close out this hot take segment, my hot take, and I was actually surprised by this, and this is the reason I gave the Chiefs the nod. Zach Taylor outcoached Andy Reid, and we saw the second half adjustments that they made. There's no way in the world that Tyreek Hill does not touch the ball in the second half. Like, there's no way that he had the first half he had, and then he just vanished because of the way things changed. And conversely, we saw Jamar Chase go from a really quiet first half to they found ways to get him involved. And so for me, I was really surprised that the team that had been to 4 straight AFC championships did not make any adjustments at halftime. And ultimately, it ended up costing them the game. So that's what I got for the hot take there. But let's get to it. I know we've talked a lot about some of the things we did or we saw this weekend, but championship game takeaways. Freddie, what was maybe 1 or 2 takeaways you had from the games this weekend?
Man, that my biggest takeaway is that, well, it's not even a takeaway. It's more that I already knew this, that OBJ being OBJ, that he can still be OBJ. If you targeted him the football, I believe he had like 9 targets for like $115 or something like that. I mean, the dude totally showed everybody, said, hey, it was clearly me, a Baker, not me. I'm in this situation. Hey, I'm thriving. I'm not a cancer like everybody thought I was. I'm not the problem. Hey, I'm just waiting for the offseason to figure out if I'm getting paid, what team I'm going to be on, if we back here. I'm OBJ, and I'm back.
Okay. I'm with it.
I hate you, bro.
Hey, we just had a few people in the chat.
Ray, because what bothers me about it is, though, he'll go off and say that, but now, all the Russell Westbrook slander is the same thing, to where it's like, if Russell Westbrook performs well in the playoffs for the Lakers, it's going to be different, right, Freddie? It's going to be different.
Can I ask you a question?
I believe you're the oldest. Problem? Is
Kenny,
it going to
Kenny, I believe you're the oldest one on the set. Can I ask you a question, sir? Because sometimes I like to lead on the veterans of the show
here's how I know I got him, Joe.
It is our job, that the job that we're into is to judge what we see, correct?
Right. And please
say it. Kenny, is that right?
Bro, please say it.
Correct.
Please say it, Freddie.
So Joe, if I see Russell Westbrook throw the ball, throw the ball over 7-8 times a game, guess what? I'm not gonna say, oh, he's playing wonderful.
Now, Joe, let me ask you the same question.
Down the stretch, he might play better, but right now he's just playing perfectly.
All right, cool. Fine. Now, Joe, let me ask you something. Now, throughout 6 weeks of football, when Odell Beckham Jr. led the league and dropped passes and dropped targets, did I not have the right to say that kid's dropping the football?
No.
Well, he was leading the league.
It's a lot different. Don't the receiver have to depend on the quarterback
to give him the league and dropped passes?
Joe,
how is it
football? The receiver got to depend on the quarterback, correct?
If the ball, do you know what a dropped pass is?
The quarterback can put that receiver in a bad situation. Am I correct?
In your hands, and you dropped it.
No, it was not in his hands. No, it was not in his hands.
That's what a drop. You know what drop is? In order to drop something, you have
in a bad situation, correct?
Bro, you understand though, Freddie?
It was not right in his hand.
Freddie, how do you drop something? How do you drop something? You have to have it.
I guess I need to go back to Kenny to our elder statement.
Kenny,
man, don't pull me.
Did your quarterback put the receiver in a bad situation?
Kenny,
that you can, but to Mike's point,
what is a drop
once the ball hits your hands, and it's a drop pass, that means the ball has hit your hands. It wasn't that
many situations.
I don't care. He led the league, bro.
He can lead the league, but if his quarterback put him in bad situation, that's not his problem.
So Frank Vogel puts Russ in bad situations.
No, Russ put himself in a bad situation ever since he's been in the NBA. Ever since he's been in the NBA, he's been doing that.
I want this energy to be the same. I'm not saying Russ is going to do it. I'm just saying, if he does, I need this man full screen. I need it.
Bro. No, Mike, it's Kenny.
No, because you slandered me for saying OBJ was dropping passes.
No, Mike, because guess what? You said he was a cancer. You said he was the problem. You said this dude was trash. You said that.
I never said he was trash.
Kenny, and Landon both was slandering this man.
Never once did I say he was trash. I said I don't like his attitude.
The only thing I heard about OBJ was that I did hear the cancer thing, but I didn't hear that from Mike. I heard that. I think it was Jonathan that was saying that. I don't think that was Mike.
That's crazy, right?
But Kenny,
that's crazy, right?
Can I ask you a question? I want to ask you another question. So let's say fast forward in the playoffs. Russ Ballin. It's my job as an analyst to analyze his game and come on here and say, you know what? Russell Westbrook is playing great. He's the reason why the Lakers winning. That's my job. That's my job. What I'm supposed to do? Analyze what's going on.
Why didn't you slander Odell when he wasn't performing well? Is my only question.
It's because it's more than just Odell.
Because you're a Giants fan, bro.
No, it's more than Odell, Mike. Russell Westbrook don't depend on anybody else to get him the basketball at times. This time he had the ball and make those decisions. If Baker Mayfield would put him in the right situation, then he was dropping passes. Okay, cool. It's on OBJ, but that was not the case.
If a ball is in your hand and you look at me and drop it.
It wasn't that, though.
That's on you.
It wasn't that situation, though.
Fair enough. So, Coach Kenny, what we got for some of your takeaways from the divisional playoffs? How we got Russell Westbrook?
I'm going to get, me either, but I'll be quick. I just got two for a guy that's considered to be
I know Freddie didn't run away.
Got him, right?
To be a great coach, Andy Reid.
I didn't run away. I'll be right back.
Andy Reid's record in the championship games is 2-8. So
that's a heck of a stat.
Yeah, so like and someone that's considered to be a Hall of Famer, like he really comes up short a lot. We talked about Aaron Rodgers, but you could put Andy Reid in that same boat because a 2-8 record is piss poor.
Unacceptable.
So I just think that that's one of the really big things that came from me, and for offense, and you touched on it a little bit, is that for offense that powerful to only produce 3 points in the second half, and then almost gave it away. They almost fumbled it away and almost fumbled away a chance to even tie the game. They were lucky to even score the 3 points that they made because Mahomes was scrambling around and nearly fumbled, and thank God his lineman fell on the ball, or else the game is over in the fourth quarter. So I just think there's a lot of questions that Andy Reid is going to have to answer in this offseason and going forward, because we were talking about this team being a potential dynasty.
Right.
And right now they're 1-3.
Back to back.
Yeah, you've been in the last 4 AFC championship games and you're 1-3. So it's really, there's some really questions that are going to have to be answered in this offseason for the Chiefs. And for the other game, we kind of, we talked the Jimmy G thing to death, so I'm not going to touch on that. But I just think this is, I think this game came down to the Rams defense stepping up when they needed to, because they really didn't get to Jimmy G as much as I thought they were going to. But when crunch time came, when they really needed to make a play, that Rams pressure really got to Jimmy G, and I think that was the difference in that game. So those are my 2 biggest takeaways from the weekend.
Okay, I'm with it. And Joe, what you got for us?
My biggest takeaways is the Rams were ready for the Niners. It was one of the reasons why I was hoping Tampa Bay got to the Rams, because it's hard to beat a team 3 times, man, in the same season. It's hard. Mm-hmm. The Rams were really prepared for what the Niners were going to throw at them. That the announcer said yesterday during the game that during the week the Rams put on their shoulder pads and were hitting in practice, something that NFL teams don't do at this point in the season. But they were doing that to get ready for a physical style of football that the Niners play. Mm-hmm. And you could tell because the Niners weren't able to run yesterday. So that was one of the big reasons why I just didn't want that matchup, but it happened, and I wasn't too shocked at the outcome of the game. Secondly, in the AFC, man, the Bengals are for real. I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl. I'm picking the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. I believe Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, those guys are going to run the league for the next, decade or so. Joe Burrow is for real. I seen this dude do that in college. I seen him walk into Tuscaloosa, Alabama, beat Alabama. He beat Tua in a big, game that Alabama and LSU plays. He goes to the national championship game against Clemson, beats Trevor Lawrence in that game, comes to the NFL, beats Patrick Mahomes twice, both times coming from down double digits at halftime to do it. Both games. They beat the Chiefs. Both games. They were down double digits at halftime, and they came back and won those games. Joe Burrow, man, and to do that in the playoffs, down 18 in the AFC Championship game at Arrowhead Stadium, to tell me this guy who's basically a rookie, because last year he missed most of the season with an ACL injury, is come in there and have that kind of poise to do that. The Bengals are for real. Joe Burrow is for real. I like the Bengals to win the Super Bowl.
Hey Joe, let me ask you a question. So, did you think you had a better chance of going to the Super Bowl if you went up against Tampa as opposed to?
Yeah.
Okay,
I did.
That's fair.
Gotcha.
Just because the familiarity that the Rams have with us, this is 3 times.
Right, they're gonna get one.
That was the third game.
All, like you said,
beat them 7 in a row.
You look at the Trent Williams play when they sent Trent Williams in motion. It didn't fool them at all. They knew it. They knew what was coming. When they put Trent, that didn't mean anything to them. They knew what was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, I didn't get your takeaways.
Oh man, I look like a genius right now, bro. Like I'm living my life. I'm living lavish. You know, Jamar Chase, I got him in the 5th round of my fantasy football league. You know, he won me a title. He won me my first ever fantasy football championship. And
I guarantee that won't happen next year.
I guarantee you it won't. He's my keeper. I don't care. I'm not keeping Travis Kelce. I'm gonna keep Jamar, but yeah, I don't like any of my
That's a
RB.
tough call.
It's I'm playing with some dice over here.
There's not a bunch of tight ends at that level, but
I was about to say that's a tough call. That tight end position is thin.
I'm going with Kyle Pitts next year, I think, though, low key. I don't know. I'll see what happens. But with that being said, I look like a genius because I said right after week 15, I won that championship. So when I looked at it, I was like, you know what? Bengals are going to the Super Bowl. And I meant it. I doubled down on it. I posted it everywhere. And somehow they made it. So shout out to Jamar for making me look good. But the bigger one I want to talk about is Stafford because we don't like story times all the time because Freddie spends at least a good 40 minutes in story times. But my first NFL game was with my dad. It was Bears versus Lions. I was like 13 years old. It was the great Josh McCown, the greatest Bears quarterback ever lived, versus Matthew Stafford. It was against Stafford, and my love for Stafford grew there. I was there for Stafford's last game with Calvin Johnson. I was there for no one knew at the time. It was against the Bears, and it was Matt Forte's last game as a Bear. So I've been following Matthew Stafford since I was a kid, man, and I've always had love for him. So to see that he's finally getting this, especially in the state that he grew up in, for the team that he grew up rooting for, it speaks volumes, man, and I'm just so happy for him. It's going to be so dope. And I feel so happy for Detroit Lions fans because, you know, this is the closest they're going to get to a Super Bowl with Eminem and Matthew Stafford at the Super Bowl. I mean, that's just a W in itself. So shout out to the Detroit Lions for making an appearance somewhat. It's probably going to be the only appearance they get.
Cool. So I'm going to kind of piggyback off a couple of things that was said. For the Kansas City game, I've seen this happen a lot with Kansas City. Sometimes you can just be too much for your own good. And I saw at the end of the first half, they went all the way down the field, got to like the 5-yard line, and then just started doing the bull crap. Like just doing way too much, not managing time, taking things for granted because it was hot. I felt they came out in the second half thinking cruise control. And it was a completely different team in the second half. And shout out to the Bengals for taking advantage of it. But this was a bad loss. And I don't know if some of that's karma from some of the things we've seen from Mahomes' fiance and brother and all the BS that they be doing or what. But that was just an abysmal performance.
Hey, Ray, I've said it all year. That right there, that was for Sean Taylor. Because I ain't never going to forget that. For as long as I live, I'll never forget that.
100%. And that just, it sucks because I really like Kelce. I really like Hill. But Pat Mahomes just hit a wall and they choked that game away. And shout out the Bengals, as I said earlier, making the adjustments, continuing to play. When Joe showed up to the game like that, you knew he meant business. And although they struggled a little early, they didn't quit. And after what we saw in the Titans game where he got sacked 9 times and he stood in there and came back, that's the demeanor of that team. When your leader is willing to take that kind of stance, take those kind of shots and continue to lead, that galvanizes everybody. Right. And you see the way that they rally around this guy who's really in a lot of ways still a rookie. He missed most of his rookie year.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And the fact that he's become the unquestioned leader with a lot of his play and demeanor, like even the question they asked him about his chain, like that speaks to your locker room. Like that speaks to the environment that you're in, which is why I would love to see more minority coaches getting opportunities because there's just certain things that certain people can't relate to and have that conversation unless you lived it. So really happy for them. And conversely, really happy for Odell. Like he's been getting destroyed for years as being the problem and being this and being that and fighting with the net and all this, that, and the other. And not only did he make it to the Super Bowl, he played a huge role. Like that shot he took on that pass down the sideline, and he got right up. And I was like, please don't be hurt. Please don't go out. He got up. He didn't respond. He didn't get a taunting penalty back. He was a quote unquote model citizen, and he balled out. And that
Can I
was
ask you something about that though, Ray?
What?
Like, and I'm not comparing the two by any means. But I mean, it's not the first time we've seen someone who's had issues before perform well in a playoff game with a better team in a better situation. We saw Antonio Brown last year have a big impact with the Tampa Bay Bucks, especially in the playoffs. So I kind of look at it from that perspective, and it's no Odell hate. I love Odell, but what I'm saying is he's just happy right now. You know what I mean? Like he's just living his life and he's doing his thing. But it doesn't take away from, kind of what happened with New York, kind of what happened with Cleveland. They're all still things that happened. And we have to hold true to that because those are things that he lived. But just like with Terrell Owens, just like with Antonio Brown, just like with others, I think as long as you keep these guys happy, they're going to ball out and they're not going to make a problem. But I think at the end of the day, like I wasn't one of those guys that said he was a cancer. I was just one of those guys that said the way he goes about it isn't, to me, the right way. And I think right now he's in a perfect situation. And I think at any point in time, especially next year when Von Miller goes somewhere else and a lot of these guys have to leave because of the salary cap situation, you might see a different opinion from him. And I'm not saying, I'm not praying on his downfall. I'm just saying we have to remember this is a perfect situation. He has no reason to be upset. But the second he is uncomfortable, don't think that he's just going to not say anything. You know what I mean? He's going to be the Odell that he is. He's a very vocal individual.
But I disagree on a lot of that. I agree with your New York points. As somebody who's been a Baker supporter since college, Odell could have been a huge issue in Cleveland. I don't believe Odell was an issue in Cleveland.
Yeah, he never made anything public. He never said anything publicly.
I don't think it was a big issue.
And I think part of that was a ton of fame off of the catch at a young age and a huge market. And he didn't handle some things right. I'll give you that. But since he's left New York, I think he had the thing with the model. I don't know. I think he might have been in Cleveland.
That's a personal. I think that's just a personal thing.
Right. But as far as him, like by all accounts, he was fracturing the locker room because people were siding with him against Baker because he wasn't getting the shine, or he was getting a lot more criticism.
I guess that's where a part of my problem was like remaining silent about it. It was, and I hear you.
Think that was him. They were just seeing the film and saying he's open and he's not getting.
But I never heard once, and it's not that he should have to, but as that premier phenomenon that is the wide receiver number one position, you kind of got to have your QBs back at some point. And not once did I ever hear him ever say, hey, Baker's still my guy at the end of the day. He was just kind of like, yeah, like that's what's going on. And that's just to me, that's like the bad look. And I get your point though, where it's like Baker.
I don't feel like I hear that at all. I don't know that very often. Out of receivers, outside of Terrell Owens crying about his quarterback.
I'm about to say if receivers if they're not getting the ball where they feel like they should, they're not going to fake the funk.
Look at Randy Moss, you look at Terrell, look at all the elite. That is typically not something reserved, so I don't put that on him. No, and he could have been frustrated in LA this year because there was games he was only getting 2 and 3 targets.
Yeah. Even Amari Cooper just came out and said that he wanted to be more involved.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. But that's where I'm coming from, though. It wasn't even Odell saying, anything. It was just quiet. And I would rather have him say something more to, okay, we're going to fix this problem rather than just say nothing and kind of let the media just stir up the pot into something that it wasn't. And I felt like it was way more blown out than I didn't ever feel like there was a Baker or Odell beef. I just felt like Baker's an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, and Ray, I know you like him, but it's like, I think at the end of the day, he just misses his reads and he gets a little too caught up into the moment. He doesn't even look at that second look. He doesn't even look for Odell because he's throwing it out the second he has it. But I think at the end of the day, for me, being someone who was in a locker room, when someone says nothing, that's saying everything. And that's where
had he come out and been supportive and then Baker kept playing well, now he's going to keep getting asked questions. Right. I feel like he came in, he already had a reputation. And for the most part, we haven't heard much about him, period. And I think that was by design because certain people are the wrong messenger.
Right. And I'm still rocking with Odell. Like, I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying, like, he's in a perfect situation right now, and I'm happy for him. But, like, I can't pretend like, the stuff in New York didn't happen and, like, that everything's always going to be, sunshine and rainbows from here on out.
I don't even think this is perfect. Like, I think if you're Odell, you want to be the guy. You just watched Cooper Kupp win the Triple Crown, and you were on the field. So
right.
I don't think Odell will ever say this, but he probably thinks he's a better receiver than Kupp. And he's getting half as many targets. So
that's an athlete, though. I think any athlete has the right to kind of say that as long as you can back it up.
But that's my thing. I don't think you're saying it's a perfect situation. I don't think it's perfect. I think he's making the most of it. And you're right. He's playing for a contract. So I'm not saying he might not say something in the future, which I think there are times it's within your right. Like, if Devontae Adams would have came out and said something about Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't fault him for it. Like,
and that was my thing. Is like, I don't really care about the Cleveland shit. Like, I even asked Kenny. Me and Kenny had conversations on the side about it. I was like, I blame not Odell. I blame Baker more than I blame Odell. Like, that's the biggest thing, because Baker at the end of the day is the one who started all of this. You're the one that's throwing the football. You're the one that's causing. There's a 12-minute film all about Baker of exactly why this is a problem. But to me, like, the other things that have happened, the LSU stuff, the Giants stuff, it's just kind of like, at the end of the day, you kind of have to look at it and be like, I know he's growing and I know he's becoming a better man and he's growing up and he's not that kid he once was. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here, and I did the same thing with Antonio Brown. Last year, I was like, yeah, I don't think we even had this conversation, Kenny. I was like, I don't think we'll see a problem from Antonio Brown because he's happy with Brady. And then look at him taking off his clothes on the sideline and retiring. So after the Antonio Brown stuff, and I know it's two totally different boards.
Yeah, that's a bad.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, I'm never going to say that again. Because I look at it like that and I'm like, well, Antonio Brown made me look stupid by jumping 7 feet in the air with a broken ankle, completely naked. Like, I can't.
He's had issues way before that. So I don't know when you were on the AB bandwagon, but before he left Pittsburgh, you should have got off that, because it's been nothing but chaos since.
No, right, for sure. But you hear what I'm saying is, like, like, at any point.
But like, I guess though, I guess, and Mike, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think the thinking is that if it's anybody that you're going to play with and not have a problem with and not have issues with, you would think it would be Tom Brady. Is that
right? And that's where I was coming from. Was like, all right, so if you're with Brady, everything's going to be straight, everything's going to be cool, and then it wasn't. And it honestly, like, it turned into, I'm living with Tom Brady, we're best friends, we're brothers, and now it's, I hate Tom Brady, he owes me $10,000, this, and this. And it's like, dude, like, how did this happen so fast? And I'm not saying it's not the two peas in the same pod at all, because AB is in a whole different category of what's going on with him. He makes Terrell Owens look like a saint, but it's definitely something like with Odell is like, I could definitely see an issue in the future, but I'm happy for him and I'm happy for what he's doing. I don't think he's a cancer.
So that kind of, go ahead. Somebody want to respond.
I don't see any issue with Odell going forward, because, like I said, the Antonio Brown incident, you shouldn't even brought that up. I mean, he was in Pittsburgh playing with Ben Roethlisberger, coached by Mike Tomlin,
right?
Getting all the balls he wanted. He was getting 10, 15 targets a game. If you can't play with that and play for that coach and that organization, and then he had a lot of off the field issues, and Odell don't have off the field issues.
Odell's had a couple off the field issues, but that's
not legal. Not any legal issues.
He had that stuff at LSU with the cop, but that, I don't know what went down with that.
Talking about sexual assaults and all this stuff, and the police being called on you and your baby mama and all that. No, it's nothing. It's not even close, man.
And I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying you have to look at it and you have to understand, like, this perfect situation that everyone's saying, it can change in a matter of seconds. So I'm just living for it right now, and I'm happy for him. But I'm not going to sit here and act like LA is always going to be the spot.
I think you probably need to change the phrasing in terms of it being a perfect situation to it's a winning situation.
Right.
I think that's what the biggest difference is that it's a winning situation where he's getting and he's not even getting the same opportunities that he was getting, in his other stops. but it's a winning situation. Winning situations change everything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when you're in a winning
that's where I'm
situation, it's
coming
a
from,
whole
is
lot easier to accept the
right.
role.
So
I
if
don't
he wins
think
the Super Bowl, I don't know where he's at.
I don't even think Odell is in LA next year.
That's
Yeah,
what I
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
But I think that this was,
You know what,
and we're
though?
probably jumping the gun, but I think this was this will give this will be a springboard for
Right.
Odell, I believe, to
Right.
get another opportunity as opposed to, you know, with the AB, he's burnt that bridge.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll say
So
that,
I think
though.
that's
I
what the
do
difference
think
is.
if they lose in the Super Bowl, I think he would return to run it back. But I think if they win, I mean, he's got nothing else to prove. He's won a Super Bowl. He's done everything else. Depending on how he performs, if he leaves that stadium, you know, in 2 weeks from now with a Super Bowl MVP, it's a definite possibility. You have to look at it and think, is he just going to go chase the bag wherever that goes? Rightfully so, he should, because he's entering the age of 30. It's probably one of the last big bags.
30, I think.
I wouldn't blame him at all. So I think I think when it comes to Odell, and not to get off topic, but when you see that, you know, if he does win the Super Bowl, I don't know where his future lies when it comes to like what kind of team he would want to go to. But if he loses, I would like to think he runs it back.
I mean, that all depends on the money too, because like you said, they're gonna have to pay.
Right, dude. Like it's gonna be bad.
Yeah, it's not gonna be easy.
I don't think they can.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, me either.
I think they pay him
and you still got Robert Woods coming back. So
yeah, that's a tricky situation though. You don't really know what you got left with Woods, but yeah, I don't know. But I think, you know, I definitely will say they'll pay him before they pay Von, no doubt. Von Miller's out.
I would agree.
Yeah, Miller was just a 1 year rental. That was just
right.
Odell
is kind of that question mark of, are you going to be a
draft pick? You can't pass up that deal for a draft pick.
No, for sure.
So, Mike, based on everything you're saying, and I'll kind of pass this around, would you say yesterday's performance is not a vindication for him? He's still Odell, the same Odell as general, or do you think he did anything to improve his image across the media?
It's crazy because I don't think it changes my perspective on Odell at all. And that's because I was never the one to say he's a cancer. I know the kid can ball out. The kid did exactly he did exactly what the standard is for Odell Beckham Jr. Now in Cleveland, the standard was, hey, we just want to win one game. Now that wasn't Odell's standard. You know what I mean? So I think that's where a lot of the problems lie. What Odell did wasn't out of the ordinary for what the expectations were for Odell in New York or very early on in his career. So to me, it didn't change anything because I never hopped off the Odell bandwagon of this kid is a premier wide receiver. I've made that clear. I think sometimes his attitude gets in the way and sometimes other things get in the way. But that's the position. Like they are the face of every franchise, no matter which way you want to look at it. Like that's just the reality of it. You know, we look at it, and I'm a safety, Joe, like just for me, no one gives a shit how I feel ever. So it's like, no one cares how the safety feels. No one cares how the defensive tackle feels or the offensive lineman. They care about how your quarterback feels and how the wide receiver feels. So that's why I feel like, you know, the media can portray it any way they want that Odell's back, but I don't think he ever really left.
Okay. And do you think that now what we've seen, if you're Cleveland and what Odell has done, does that put more pressure on Baker or does it not change for Baker at all either?
I think you have to look at it in many different forms. I think for Baker, and I do not support Baker, drafted that man in fantasy because Hulu has live sports, right? But that did not help me whatsoever. But it came down to it at the end of the day. I think, you know, it definitely speaks volumes to that fifth-year option. I definitely don't think he gets that fifth-year option. I think you definitely have to drop that as soon as possible or ship that off. But I wouldn't truly just say, you know, okay, well, Matthew Stafford's doing amazing things with Odell, so that means that Baker Mayfield's trash. You know, he's trash for different reasons, you know, definitely for other reasons. But I don't know. I would be upset about it. I'd be like, man, that could have been us. We had a good defense. We had Landry. We had, you know, a great run game. We had everything going for us. Baker really was the one that held them back. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I looked at it. Cleveland was weird because you look at Austin Hooper and look at Njoku. They didn't even run routes. They just block. You can't tell me what Njoku did 2 years ago and what Hooper did in Atlanta. You're just ignoring that as an offensive play caller. I think there's a lot more that goes into it than just, what we're seeing from Baker. I think that whole thing is a mess.
Well, I think that speaks to, I think that speaks to the trust level factor that they have in Baker Mayfield,
Right, but
in that they don't give him all of those options because they know he's not going to feed all of those guys.
But how do you
so
feel?
why put all of those guys into a pattern when he's not going to spread the wealth?
Right,
and I think that was OBJ's issue.
Right, but when you look at it now, you go into the season, and this is how I wanted your opinion on it. You have the number 1 ranked offensive line, and you have both of your premier tight ends still blocking. That, to me, as a coordinator, you need to understand, okay, we either have to move on from Baker or I have to be fired as an offensive coordinator, because there's no way both of my tight ends are blocking 90% of the game. There's no shot if I have the number 1 offensive line. That's just not something you do. Like, you have to look at it and be real about it. Yes, Odell was there and Landry was there, but you have to put other wide receivers or receivers out there for Baker. And you have to look at it whether you trust the kid or not. I've had Mitchell Trubisky for I don't know how long. We still threw guys out there and let them do them. We did not have 8 guys protecting Baker, and Baker's still getting sacked. Like, that's to me where it was like, Baker's a problem. Baker's not good. But I do think at the end of the day, a lot of the coordinators out there, and Ray, I'm sorry, I like Baker, but I just think he's a Hollywood version of Mitchell Trubisky, and I'll die on that hill. I really will. I'll die on it. But I think Cleveland's got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, what about you? Do you think this week and really these playoffs have vindicated Odell at all? And if so, what does that mean for Baker?
Since he left Cleveland, it's vindicated Odell, because honestly, until tonight, I didn't hear about these issues he had with the media and off the field. I didn't hear anything about it. The only thing that I heard about Odell was he didn't have it anymore. He wasn't their receiver.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So what he's done now, ever since he's been in LA, has showed everybody he's still Odell. He still is capable of making those plays. And, he has more touchdowns in a few games than he did in a couple of years in Cleveland. And hell yeah, that puts the pressure on Baker Mayfield. I think that's the equivalent of Tom Brady leaving New England and winning the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Yeah, that puts pressure on Bill Belichick. And I think it puts the same pressure on Baker Mayfield, because now it's saying, hey, Odell wasn't the problem. You were the problem. Because before that, people were having sympathy, because I heard it all the time. They had sympathy for Baker Mayfield. Like, oh, Baker, he's dealing with this. He's dealing with Odell. He's dealing with all these egos. But no, we're seeing now that actually Baker Mayfield was the problem. So, yeah, definitely this time in L.A., ever since he's been in L.A., in my eyes, OBJ has been vindicated, and all the heat is on Baker. So now, what are you going to do now? Now you're talking about, are they picking up that 5th-year option, or are they going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are the questions now. Is he worth it? Is he worth it? We're not talking about Odell.
So I think we've heard it twice now. Mike, you said that 5th-year option, they try to pull it. Joe, you're saying maybe they don't give Baker the extension. Yep. So what kind of deal do you think Odell gets this offseason? Does he get another prove-it deal, or do you think somebody's going to throw some money at him?
Somebody's throwing some money at Odell, because he's proved that he's still an elite receiver. Right. He's proved that he doesn't have any off the field issues. That was Antonio Brown's off the field.
Yeah.
Why he got those prove-it deals? Can you stay out of trouble? You know. Right. So Odell, you don't have those problems with Odell. The question with Mark was him was, can he still be who he is on the field? And he's shown that. So I think Odell's money is whether he wants to take it or not, where he wants to go to take it, or does he want to take less and stay in LA?
Now, do you think, and this is for all you guys, I'm just wondering about it. Now, we know he's going to get the money, but what does the length of those contracts to you look like now that he's entering 30?
Yeah, probably 3 or 4 years.
Right.
Yeah, right, correct.
I think 3 years, maybe 20, 30 million guaranteed, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was
thinking. It's not going to be nothing long term. It'll be 3 years, 3 or 4 at the most, I would think.
Yeah, for sure.
Kenny, what about you? This indicate Odell, or what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on a little bit on with Joe. Is that it definitely vindicates, shows that he can make plays. It shows that he's that he's still, when he gets an opportunity, that he can still make plays. And that was the question. That was the question as to whether or not he was still that guy and, being a receiver. And so he's shown now, with his production in LA that he still has that skill set. So he's definitely vindicated himself. And I think for Baker Mayfield, he falls in that category to me. He's in that same category with Jimmy G. Like I'm not committing any type of long-term money to Baker Mayfield. He's between him, Jimmy G, Daniel Jones. Like, to me, all of those guys are all in the same category. Tua to an extent as well. All of those.
Tannehill in there.
Yeah, Tannehill. That's another one you could.
Hell yeah.
You could throw him in that mix too. Is that
don't do that.
of those guys that you don't know whether or not they're the guys to be able to lead your franchise to the promised land. Like, you have questions as to whether or not they're the guys that you can count on to lead your team down the field to win a game. And so I think he's in that same category with them. And to answer your other question, I'm definitely not giving them that 5th year. He's got to show me. This is show and tell. This is show and prove for Baker Mayfield. No extension. You going into this offseason, like, if necessary, if I got a franchise or whatever the case may be, because he has one more year. Is this the last year of his deal this year, correct?
If they don't give the 5th, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'm not extending him. We're going. I'm DACing you. I'm DACing you. You have no extension. You have to show me next year that you're the guy that's going to be able to lead my franchise into the playoffs and sustain and be a winner and sustain a winning culture and create a winning culture. Because to me,
right,
the question now that really has to be answered about Baker Mayfield: are you a guy that cultivates a winning culture? Because we could see when Odell was in a winning culture, what he was able to do.
Right.
So now that question now goes to Baker Mayfield is, are you the guy that's going to be the face of the franchise? Or are you more of the guy that's you're more known for your endorsements and for your commercials than you are for leading the team?
Right. And I think, like, my problem with it personally, I hear it and I get it. Look what he's doing with the Rams versus what he did in Cleveland. But I look at, and it's not an excuse, Joe. I want you to know, because Joe doesn't know me from nothing. But I do not like Baker at all. It's not an excuse for Baker to be awful. But when I look at the situation Odell went to with McVay and with Kupp having the Triple Crown and Higbee and Woods and all these other. Woods was there for a short period, literally like a day, and then he tore his ACL. But it's still that same concept. You have great offensive guys and great offensive minds. Matthew Stafford is a great offensive mind, making the Lions look like idiots. And you have to look at it, though, and look back at what Baker has. I can't tell you Baker's offensive coordinator. I can't tell you anything about any wide receiver.
I think the head coach was calling the plays because he's
and that's the problem. Look at your revolving door of head coaches that Baker's had and all this other stuff. So I do think it still speaks volumes to how bad Cleveland is. But I look at where Odell went. It was a great situation. And Baker might just not be in his great situation because, like I said, I think he's a Mitchell Trubisky type guy. I think he's more serviceable than he is your leader on the team. I think you have to build around Baker, and even then he still might not meet expectations. So I don't know. I think it's when you look at it and you're like, all right, this guy went to Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and Cooper Kupp. Like, it's like, I hear what you're saying to where it makes Odell look better. But I mean, that's a stretch to me.
Mike, I think you're overstating what LA was and is, and you're understating what Cleveland is.
Cleveland shit always was.
I disagree. Cleveland has spent a ton of money. They've drafted relatively well. They have Myles Garrett.
Right.
They have a whole bunch of people on that team. They had a great running game, one of the top running games in the league. He had tight ends. He had Jarvis. He had Odell. Odell was supposed to be the final piece. And I think the other part that I don't hear you talk about as much with Odell was before he got hurt, he was balling in New York. So the majority of
balling in Cleveland.
Yeah, he had a 1,000-yard season in Cleveland.
The majority of his career has been sensational. He was he was hurt. And outside of that, like we've seen as he's gotten up to speed and gotten into this new offense,
right?
Cooper Kupp was having a good year. I guarantee you he's glad that Odell was able to come in, because without Odell and what
was going to be bad,
going
bro.
down,
It was going to be bad,
what's
especially
going
after
down.
Woods went down.
Right. I think he looks different. We're giving Matthew Stafford a lot of credit, but there was a time middle of this year where people were real skeptical of Matthew Stafford.
Right.
And then Odell got there. And part of it, they didn't have a running game. They had running backs that were down.
Yeah.
But Odell has fit with them, and I think everyone's benefited. I don't think it's so much that he's just in a great situation, which I agree he is. But you can say that about DeAndre Hopkins. You can say that about any receiver that plays with a top-tier quarterback.
Right.
If you take them out of those situations, they look different.
Right. And I love that you made that point, though, about the puzzle, is because Odell was the missing piece to both teams, to Cleveland and the Rams. They needed that second guy because Robert Woods was good, but it wasn't that, phenomenon that is Odell Beckham Jr. Now, here's my thing about it. When you have someone like Sean McVay, you have someone who's able to put the pieces of that puzzle together. You can have all of the pieces, but my thing is, when you don't use Austin Hooper, when you don't use Njoku, when you're not trying to make it, you have to get it into this kid's mind, give Odell the ball or I'm going to kill you. Like that kind of mentality. It's just not it in Cleveland, man. Like they're piss poor and they don't give a shit about the results they're giving. Now they spent a lot of money and that's valid. They put together a good team, but I don't think they have the right coaching staff or the right front office to be able to put that puzzle together fully. And I think it all starts with Baker.
But so answer me this question. If you swap Baker and Stafford, where's Cleveland and where's LA?
Where's Odell?
And Cleveland.
If he's in Cleveland, I'd say it's the same situation right now for the Browns that they're going to the Super Bowl.
So then I think we're saying it's a Baker issue.
Right. No, I'm telling you, I think it's a Baker issue, but I think the reason Baker is the way he is because he doesn't have people molding him or developing him. I don't think anybody's groomed him in that way. I thought Trubisky was a good quarterback, but he had a bunch of dumbasses in the room trying to turn him into something he wasn't. Baker's being forced to be something he's not. I think he's way overrated in the way we look at Baker. He's not supposed to be.
I think they've tried to take you talk about game manager. They've tried to make him a game manager. They don't want to rely on him. They brought in Kareem Hunt when all the drama went down with him. They took the risk on him. Yeah. They brought in Odell. They took
a lot of risks.
And they've done, I don't know how much more outside of going and getting Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins you can put in Cleveland. Odell was supposed to be that. So
but that's what I'm saying, though, is
if you put one of those top tier receivers, I think they look like Odell looked.
Right.
Because Baker's not good.
How do you
feel not good enough?
When you look at it, you can have all these weapons. But if you don't know what you're doing and no one's developing you to teach you about the mistakes that you're doing, they're allowing you. Ray, we're looking at 6 to 7 weeks of a coach not saying a word to Baker about getting Odell the football. That's a problem to me. It took some random kid on YouTube to make a 12-minute compilation of all of his shit that stinks for it to go viral. And then it was addressed by the head coaches. The head coaches didn't say a word about we need to get Odell the football. They didn't give a shit about Odell. They didn't care about him getting the ball. They don't care about Austin Hooper. They don't care about Njoku. They're not – you look at them and you listen to their press conferences, which I have checked it out. They're not speaking about it, oh, well, we need to be better about running what we're doing and what we're trying to do. I don't think you know what you're trying to do. You have all these weapons but no identity. That's where I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to say no one developed Baker. And a part of that's Baker, though, because no one really developed Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is the same guy he was at LSU. But what I'm saying is when you have a situation like that, and I've been there with Mitchell Trubisky, you need the right people around him or your ship is going to sink, and it's going to sink fast, and you're going to go down with it. And I think you're going to see that entire coaching staff go down with Baker, whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now.
Well, he's gotten quite a few people fired. I think
you're putting too much on the coaching staff, and you're not putting enough blame on Baker. I mean,
I'm blaming Baker.
But you keep saying they're not developing him to understand what to do. You're a damn quarterback. Throw the damn ball to the receivers.
And Joe, respectfully though,
when you talk about developing, having idiots as coaches, look at Matt Stafford in Detroit. How many bad coaches and bad teams were he on? He knew how to do stuff.
He had some solid coaches, though. Jim Caldwell was a banger.
Calvin Johnson. There you, like Joe Burrow says, I didn't even see it, man. I just knew Javon was down there somewhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? Same thing.
That's what I'm saying. Though. You don't got a competent guy like that. You have to understand what you have in front of you. You don't have a good
matter what the coaches. You're saying that, and that's why the coaches against the block. That's why coaches, even though you had a number one line in the NFL, we're leaving time. They're trying to do everything they can.
Trying to give them as much time as possible to make a decision.
Yeah,
to me, that speaks to the limitations of Baker Mayfield. I'm with Joe. I don't think this is on the coaching staff. I think they were doing everything possible to make the game as easy as possible for Baker Mayfield. Right. And to me, that speaks to his limitations.
Right, but what I'm saying is, though, that no one said a word to this man. No one even addressed it that, we're not getting Odell the football. That's what bothered me about
if you're in film study, and we've talked about, and this is obviously the extreme of Tom Brady in film study, some stuff you see. And to that point, I think part of it was, when watching the games, a lot of his turnovers was coming from forcing the ball to Odell.
Right.
So it's one thing to say we're not getting him the ball enough, but it's hard for us to also say you need to get him the ball more when you keep trying to get him the ball, you're turning it over.
And that's why I'm like, I don't like not Odell. I don't like Baker. I think he's awful. But what I'm saying is, I just think at the end of the day, that whole coaching staff, I don't like them either. I think there's a lot more than just. I think it was a lot more than just Odell and Baker in that whole thing. That whole locker room to me is lost.
Now, I think that coaching staff is a good coaching staff. I think Cleveland was in the playoffs last year for the first time in a long time.
And that's fine. But we've seen guys coming in and out of the playoffs. I've seen the Bears go to the playoffs how many times? That don't mean a lick of shit.
The Bears have been to the playoffs. When was the last time Cleveland have been to the playoffs?
And that's fine, but we can't just look at it and be like,
and just say that. Oh, that's fine. When they came out of nowhere and took this team that wasn't crap for decades and took them to the playoffs.
That's what you're saying, though. That team wasn't crap. Eventually, you're going to sneak in. You're going to be there. But a legitimate contender, you're not going to be there if you don't have a quarterback and if you don't have a good game plan. And they really don't have one because look at it and be real about it. When Odell left, they had Baker forcing the ball more than he had been forcing the ball when Odell was there. Why wasn't your game plan to just run the ball then? His turnovers were doubling. He was looking worse than he was when Odell was there. And you're looking at it and you're saying you should have been running the ball with two premier running backs and this great offensive line. They don't know what they're doing.
I think a lot of that was dictated by other things. Without Odell, you can crowd the box. So you naturally you're going to want to throw. But I do want to kind of move off of Baker to another guy that we could question some development, and that's Patrick Mahomes. He's obviously put up phenomenal numbers early in his career. There were times this year where he looked bad. I was critical of him on this network. I said he wasn't playing at an elite level, and I got some criticism for it. And then we saw what happened the week before last where played great. And then we saw what he's done and what he looked like in the Super Bowl last year. And then we saw what he looked like in the second half yesterday. So given what all we've seen in Patrick Mahomes, who is Patrick Mahomes at this point? And Kenny, you can go ahead and kick us off.
I think that Patrick Mahomes is someone that we haven't seen the consistent greatness from. I think that's what the level that he now has to get to. I think we probably jumped the gun a little bit in terms of anointing him as being, this great quarterback. And, it was the talk last year.
The next note.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? When him and Brady, matched up in the Super Bowl last year, we was talking about that. And I just think we jumped the gun. And I just think this is part of his maturation process as to, Romo was talking about it during the game yesterday. Just take what the defense gives you. Take what the defense gives you. And I think sometimes he gets a little too aggressive and, and not wanting to, the term matriculate the ball down the field and, or methodically move the ball down the field. He wants to take that shot. He wants to make those chunk plays. He wants to, show off that rocket arm of his. And I think sometimes he doesn't just make the simple plays or the easy plays, and he just tries to make the home run plays. And we saw that a little bit. We saw that in overtime on that interception. So I just think it's one of those things to now where he has to now show that he's going to be consistently great. And that's the level that he has to get to now before we could talk about him in those terms of the, with the Bradys and the Rodgers, and the Peyton Mannings and those types. Like he has to now get to a level of consistent greatness in order to be able to talk about him in those terms, because I think it's shown like right now, especially after this season, that that it's a little premature, that talk that we were talking about.
Okay. Joe, what about you?
I think Patrick Mahomes is a really good quarterback, but I also think he's as equally as lucky. He's just a lucky guy, man. Patrick Mahomes makes a lot of bad throws, dude. A lot of bad throws. He just throws stuff up. I see Patrick Mahomes running to his right. He'll throw the ball across his body, across the field, all the way to the left side, right side of the field, and he'll get a completion. They just throw it up, but even though they got the completion, it was a terrible throw, man, because you're throwing it into a crowd across the field. But they've been getting it, and he, like Kenny just said, they don't want it. The defenses are playing them different now. He wants to show that he has the arm, that he can make the big play and he's not making the plays that are there. There are plays that are there, but they're not the big sexy plays that they want. So he's not taking those. Even if you go back to last year, the Super Bowl, the Bucs were playing a 2-deep shell. He's still trying to throw it deep, and it wasn't working. Just throw the short stuff. Just throw it. But he didn't want to do that. They want to take the deep shots, and that's what was happening yesterday. They just want to keep forcing the ball down the field. He's been getting lucky with it, so I think he's not developing in the way he should, because since they've been getting away with it, nobody's coaching him up on it to do these. Right. You know what I mean? So I just think, like I said, I think he's really talented. He has a really big arm, but he's just as lucky as he's good that he's gotten away with the stuff that he's gotten away with it this far. But I think the tides are turning on that. Defenses are playing them differently, and I think their luck is running out.
Okay. Mike, what about you?
I've said it time and time again, and it hurts. It still hurts. Taking Trubisky over Watson, over Mahomes, taking all those guys. Like, I heard it nonstop for 4 or 5 years. I'm still hearing it, bro. And it took getting Justin Fields to not hear it anymore. And I believe the only reason I'm not hearing it now is because Mahomes isn't winning. If Mahomes was still winning, I'd still be hearing it. But I don't think he's the quarterback he was viewed as if he went anywhere else other than Kansas City. You're looking at a Hall of Fame head coach, a Hall of Fame wide receiver in Tyreek Hill, a Hall of Fame tight end in Travis Kelce. Sammy Watkins was great, and so many others. They had Kareem Hunt. They did all this other stuff. They had great guys around him. And I'm not taking anything away from Patty. I'll say this, though. When that 50 touchdown season, you don't have, and it's no fault to Patrick Mahomes, because you can't pick where you go. But if you don't have premier guys like Tyreek Hill, like Joe said, like Travis Kelce, like Andy Reid, those 50 touchdowns are probably somewhere 35-40. I'll still give him like elite quarterback play. He's an elite quarterback, no question about it. But GOAT talk, there's a big reason to why you're starting to see this fall off, is because a lot of those guys from that early championship run are leaving. And I think if and when Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill leave, I think that's when you're truly going to see who this kid is because you're already starting to see it without Sammy Watkins in the first year. Like Joe pointed to, you only have vertical threats now. Sammy Watkins is gone. So you don't have those short-arm guys, and he's not taking advantage of that. He can't do anything with that, and they found that out. Now you're starting to see, if Travis leaves, what happens then? Because then it's just Tyreek, or vice versa. You have no receivers. What's going to happen? You're starting to see a human aspect of the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think that's because they were literally a Madden video game for a couple years. And now you're starting to see the reality of it, is that these guys are human. These guys age. These guys leave. They go to different teams. You got Chris Jones playing defensive end and playing at the edge for a little bit because, they had to switch around the defense because they lost so many guys. You're starting to see a big part of what makes these guys human, and it's happening. So I do believe I was always the one that said he's not as good as everyone thinks he is. And that's no knock. That's just me saying to say this kid is the second coming after 2 seasons was ridiculous. And I think that's where you're starting to see now he can still do it. There's no doubt in my mind he can change this around and win 3 Super Bowls in a row and tell me to piss off. You know what I mean? Tell me to go kick rocks. Like that's definitely something valid that can happen. But it also shows you went to 4 AFC championships and you have 1 ring to show for it with 3 Hall of Famers sitting right next to you on that offense. And that's not including the offensive line. You have to look at it like that, and you have to understand that, that's why I have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes in the same tier when it comes to all-around talent. I think it's 1A and 1B, and I think you can flip it any way you want because I don't know how Josh Allen would perform if he had Travis Kelce, if he had Andy Reid and not a defensive-minded head coach. You have to look at it and just from all those points of the board and say, when you look at this guy's talent overall, how much of it is these guys helping him look better, like Joe said, when you just throw a ball across the entire field, or you use your left hand and Travis Kelce picks it up, that's a great pass by Patrick Mahomes. No, it's a great catch, and Travis Kelce just saved your ass is what it was at the end of the day. And you did it in double coverage. Like, we don't talk about that stuff because we're all caught up on the second coming of the GOAT. I think at any point in time, Patrick Mahomes could still be that, but right now you're starting to see a very human Patrick.
No, I agree with everything that you guys said. And I think it's tough. It's kind of like Michael Vick and Madden, and you're living up to a certain expectation when you come out with such a high bar and high standard and you play so well. But I think, and we talked about this when we thought Brady was retiring, but we don't know if he is or not. But I said the thing that differentiates Brady to me from anybody current, past, or to come will be playoffs. Right. And I think what we've seen in the playoffs in some of these big moments is you can put up a bunch of numbers, but you got to win. And Brady didn't always put up a bunch of numbers, but he found ways to win at a level that we've never really seen. And so for me with Mahomes, that's really my concern is he has everything with him right now. It's pretty much as good as it gets. And he's still falling short. And so when we get to a scenario where if a Kelce leaves, to your point, Mike, or when everything's not great, is he somebody that can lift the talent around him and be better? Or is he more so a product of his supporting cast? And I think we're starting to see he might be more of a product of the cast, and his reckless play would look a whole lot different if he didn't have all those people around to help out in all that offensive scheme. So I think people are looking at him different. He definitely has some soul searching to do. And in relation to soul searching and changes and things like that, the flip side to that, at least for me, is Matt Stafford. I feel like these were two similar type quarterbacks, but one was in Detroit with limited talent, and so he put up a bunch of numbers but didn't win, versus Mahomes, who has great arm talent with a bunch of weapons and has put up numbers, and he has won. I do want to give him credit for that. But what is, if as of today, we're not even going to go if they win or lose. As of today, how are people looking at Matt Stafford now? And Mike, I'll let you go ahead and start us.
I love Matty. Matty's my guy. He always has been my guy, and not to be biased. But I look at it, and when I look at Matt, I look at Trevor Lawrence. I look at what's going on with Trevor, and I think it's going to be the exact same situation to where this kid isn't going to get his shot or get his fair shake until he gets out of the situation he's in. And I hope he doesn't stay as long as Matt did. I love the loyalty. I always love what Stafford did. But I think, it was just too drawn out. The guy had to free himself a lot earlier on in his career, and it's really unfortunate that he didn't. Obviously, you have Calvin Johnson, so you don't want to leave that situation. You want to build something with Calvin because guys like Calvin aren't a dime a dozen. It's definitely something to where, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, that really was what it was, and there wasn't a lot of other guys doing it like that. Terrell Owens, the list goes on. But it's definitely something to where if it's always going to be, man, but you just spent too much time in Detroit. And that's always what it's going to be. So I hope he gets this ring because I think this year is the year that you get the best shot to do so. I don't see them running it back to the same magnitude as they did last year. they would have to replicate a lot of things, and they have zero draft capital and zero money to do so. So I think this is it. But I do think Matthew Stafford is a Hall of Famer at the end of the day. I view him as such. I think you look at the numbers, you don't even have to take in consideration that it was in Detroit. But if you did, that makes it 10 times better. And now you look at him his first year in LA, and he wins a championship potentially. Like, you have to look at it and be like, this guy is a full-fledged Hall of Famer without a doubt.
Cool. Hall of Fame. Wow. Okay. Kenny, what you got?
On that last point, I think he has to win a Super Bowl in order to.
Oh, I thought that was what the question was.
I was saying I think
next week.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant
just as of today.
No, yeah, I thought you meant if he wins the Super Bowl next week, then it changes everything. I think as of right now, it's we're chilling.
He's shown that, again, when you're in a winning culture, when you're in a winning situation, he's shown that he was able to be productive.
Right.
So, and to kind of touch on the last topic, this shows us that he wasn't the problem. We were talking about with Baker Mayfield. This proves that Matthew Stafford wasn't the problem in Detroit. I think that's the biggest thing. To push it further down the line, I think that this would cement his legacy if he was able to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
So I think right now, he's changed his perception in terms of not being a winner. This year shows that he can be a winner. And I think now the only thing will be now is, can he now be consistent and continue winning now in LA, now that he has all of these pieces around him, he has this defense around him. Because assuming that you're going to have, you got Cooper Kupp, you got Woods potentially coming back. Who knows what happens with OBJ, but you got Higbee should be back, and then you got that defense. So you should be a contender for the next 2 years at least. So I think that will, as it pushes forward, he's going to continue to build on his legacy. And I think right now he's proven that he can be a winner in a winning situation. That's the biggest thing.
Right.
Joe, what you got?
I think what he's doing has validated a lot of people's opinion on Matt Stafford, including myself. I know Dan Orlovsky he's real high
on victory tour.
Right. Always felt that Stafford was a good quarterback, just in a bad situation, man. I've always felt that way. I've always felt that if he went to a better team, that this would be what could happen. And all he's done is validate what I've thought. I think yesterday put him in the Hall of Fame. I don't even think he needs to win the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously that would help, but I don't think he even needs to get in there in the Super Bowl. If you look at the numbers that he's thrown up over the years, he's had several 5,000-yard passing seasons. I think he's definitely top 10. I don't know exactly the number where he's at passing, but he's top 10 in passing in NFL history. So you look at all those numbers that he put up, and you look at, I mean, if Calvin Johnson can get in, then Stafford can too.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? They're teammates. So how can
That's
he?
Fair.
And he's playing now. That's something that Calvin Johnson never did.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Joe, really quick, who threw Calvin Johnson every single touchdown?
Matt Stafford.
Oh, that's crazy.
Fair.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
I think of it that way. That's fair.
Already in the hall already, and I don't like to say that he's proved to be a winner, because I don't think, man, it's hard to say that a quarterback's a winner or he's not a winner, right, because he's done so much and they didn't win. I mean, you look at Josh Allen. Look what he did 2 weeks ago. Right. And to say that he's not a winner because his defense let him down with 13 seconds left, you know what I mean? So I don't look at saying Stafford is not a winner, man. He's just been in a bad situation on bad. He's put up a lot of numbers, but they didn't win.
Right.
You know? So he's done nothing but validate what I always thought of him. So kudos to him.
Cool. No, I agree. And with the Hall of Fame point, I was going to make the same one about Calvin Johnson. And then also you look at the two greatest receiving seasons in the history of the NFL. and Matt Stafford is the common denominator.
Quarterback.
So I definitely think it's kind of a tour for, you look at LA that had a couple people, and Sue kind of remade his image even in Tampa Bay. But you look at what LA has done and kind of the Jared Goff Super Bowl, and now they get back and have an opportunity to right that ship. I think he's validating that trade. I think that's another piece because they gave up 2 firsts and they keep putting up. They don't have a first until 2024. And so the fact that, well, Jared Goff got him there, so why did you need to do that to go get Matt Stafford? I think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing the difference in what he offers. And then we look at, and not to blame it all on Jared Goff, but we look at Detroit this year.
I'll blame it on Jared.
They, I'm not gonna say they underperformed.
Yeah, he is who he thought he was.
They didn't look good. They didn't look good at all,
Right.
and he didn't look great. So I definitely think, to a certain extent, the Rams have also been validated because you can see the difference. Now, obviously, it would make a lot more sense for them to go win it, but he's played really well in these big moments and in these big games, and the more credit and more kudos goes to him for that.
Do you think do you think the Rams win the Super Bowl in 2018 if you flip it and put Matthew Stafford on there?
I think so. I think they, because they had the Patriots right where they wanted them.
Right.
The Patriots were not an offensive juggernaut.
They were struggling. Yeah, they just couldn't score points.
The Rams just couldn't score.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You put Matthew Stafford on that team, they can beat that Patriots team. Because what was the score? I don't even think your team scored 20.
Defensive game. It was a
It
defensive.
was like 17-3 or something like that.
Yeah, the Patriots didn't do nothing to the end. You know,
right?
Yeah. Rams could have won that with Stafford.
And that's where I was like, because when we looked at it, even Chicago, because we were at the time we were in the mix, and you can even look at Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick said it. The reason that they played so well against the Rams, because the Rams were a juggernaut, it was because they used the Bears' blueprint of attack Goff, and once they attacked Goff,
13-3.
Once you attack Goff, though, like that was it. Todd Gurley was on the end of his thing, and he had his, what was it, tendonitis or something crazy. It was arthritis in his knee. But yeah, it was definitely that was going on, and I feel like with Stafford, the Bears weren't going to prepare for Stafford. The Bears have been getting lit up by Stafford for years by himself. So I think you're looking at it like that with a young Cup, with a bunch of other young cats out there. And Todd Gurley being who Todd Gurley was at the time, you have to look at it. Aaron Donald being Aaron Donald. Tom Brady wasn't even playing well in that game. So it was really just whoever played the better game, and it came down to the wire. And I think with Matthew, we're talking about a Super Bowl champion already. Yeah, I will say, I'm going to say it straight up. Goff is the problem. Like, I put Goff and Baker in that same situation as you. It has to be perfect for that ship to be able.
Yeah, it's another one. Another one to be added to the list.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But with that being said, I know we talked a lot about quarterbacks, but there is one more quarterback we haven't really gotten into. And when you look at San Fran and what they are, what they possess, they obviously had an opportunity to win the game. Maybe they should have won the game. Maybe they shouldn't have, because they did drop. For all the love we gave to Stafford, he had a bad interception in the end zone, and that punt, Hail Mary in the middle of the field, I don't know what the heck he was doing on that either. So we've seen that from him. But if you're San Francisco, we kind of talked about it, but what do you think they do? Do they try and go get Aaron Rodgers? Do you go look for Russell Wilson? Do you try and potentially convince Tom Brady to come home? Or do you ride out one more year and say, maybe we can add one more piece to help Jimmy G? Or do you kind of reinvent yourself and go with Trey Lance? Joe, what you got?
We ain't riding nothing out with Jimmy G. Like, that's I like the idea of trying to make a move for Aaron Rodgers, trying to make a move for Russell Wilson or Brady or anybody, a veteran, to come in and mentor Lance and let him sit some more. I do that. That's fine with me. And I'm also fine with, like I said, if the Trey Lance era has started now, I'm also fine with that, giving him an entire season to sit, an entire off season to know that he's the guy going in there, going into training camp. I think that's fine too. But I would really like to see if we could get one of those veteran names you just named, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, because we're ready to go right now. They're not ready to go. They just need a quarterback to, not go 1 for 6 in the fourth quarter with -8 yards, And even with that, we still almost won the game.
Still had a chance.
So if we can just get somebody to go right now, yeah, any of those names will do. I'm fine with it.
Mike, what about you?
I think Jimmy stays, but I don't think he's playing. I don't think he's playing at all. And I say that because I look at it.
Mike, you think he stays and then he sits for Trey Lance?
I do. I do.
$26 million a year backup? No.
I say that because you make my point with it is that you're not good enough on your own. And when I look at teams like the Broncos, when I look at other teams out there, they're all young cores. They are not established. They are not in win now right now. They're in building some kind of chemistry, building some kind of culture that they need. Now, you look at it, and it's not going to be Green Bay. It's not going to be anything else because, one, they can't afford Jimmy at all. They can't afford anything. They can't even afford to keep Rodgers and Adams. Like it's not going that way. Seattle, I think Seattle blows it up, to be honest. I don't see it going any other which way. I think at one point or another this ship has to go. Probably the only one that makes it out is DK and Wagner. But we'll see what happens with all that. But I just don't think any rebuilding team would want to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo when he's not a franchise quarterback. It's just not, to me, a reasonable discussion. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. And I think Aaron Rodgers is going to, they want the draft picks. Obviously, if they're going to trade him, they want the draft picks. And like you said, the 49ers are in win now. So those draft picks don't really mean anything. You look at certain teams maybe are out there like the Broncos or the Raiders or so on and so forth that have decent draft capital, kind of in the middle of the pack. But the 49ers right now, what's their pick going to be this year? Like 27, 28? Like that's not a good pick for Aaron Rodgers for what you're trying to get back.
We don't have a pick this year. We traded it for,
and that's what I'm saying though is like if you're trying to get Aaron Rodgers, you can't just sit here and be like, I got Jimmy G and a second round pick. Like, I'm gonna look at you straight in your face and say, I would rather drive Aaron Rodgers to the airport than accept that trade because that's my ass. That's just the reality of it. And the Broncos, I don't. Jimmy G to the Broncos, and I love their wide receiver core, but that to me does not scream, oh my God, they're gonna make it. Deshaun Watson screams that they're gonna make it to me, but not Jimmy G.
I don't know, man. I mean, the Texans, we might be able to find somebody like Bill O'Brien to trade D.
If you can get Watson, I'm sold on it. But then it comes down to it at the end of the day that Watson's so young. How long is Trey going to be sitting? What are you going to do with Trey?
We get Watson trades out of here too.
You know what I mean? Right. How dumb does that look? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like to the point to where it's like, well, then you never believed in Trey from the beginning. And that's where I think that Jimmy's just probably going to end up staying the last year.
So to that point, and I'll ask, because the rumors are, and I don't know if it's official yet, that McDaniels is going to Vegas.
Yeah,
McDaniels maybe try to swap Jimmy for Carr. If you make that phone call.
I love that.
I know you love that.
I love it.
Wait, say what? That McDaniels would trade Jimmy G for Carr?
I mean, they have rapport.
I love it.
Trying to get fired?
I love it.
I mean, but
trying to lose another job?
I mean, you might try and get, draft capital back or add a player to even it out, maybe not straight up, but in essence, swap, because from what I've heard, Carr's a likely option to move as well. Coming in with a new GM, new coach, maybe they want to start over. Maybe Josh wants to get his guy to run maybe his system.
Right.
I feel like that's the most likely of the options because you do want to get a veteran. You don't want to necessarily get somebody that's going to be around for a long time because I like Lance. I think he has an opportunity. But I think Mike mentioned, I still think he's maybe 2, maybe even 3 years away from being the man. But I think he has the skills to be the man. So that would be my suggestion.
I think that's the problem, is that to Joe's point, is that you're kind of in win now mode. and to, basically bring in a young guy to try to learn on the fly, that might be a challenge. But on the other hand, the other thing that I like about, the way that Shanahan calls offense and the way he's able to scheme running, the running attack, you put him back there with Debo and with Elijah Mitchell, and then you get Mostert back next year. Like you can have some serious ground attack, and he can have some real toys to play with. So, it's a good dilemma to have, but I say all that to say that I don't see that there's any way that Jimmy G is back next year as a 49ers quarterback. I think you either go the veteran route, you either make a trade for a veteran to kind of be the placeholder to for Trey Lance so he could get a little learn behind him that can kind of mentor him, again to Joe's point, or you just go all the way in on Trey Lance and you just RPO people to death.
Right. That's my problem though, is like when you look at the free agency class of quarterbacks, you got Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Mitchell Trubisky, a bunch of guys who are just that serviceable thing that Jimmy Garoppolo is, and they're cheap. They're not $26 million. So that's why I'm saying I think the guy just ends up sitting unless you trade your entire future for him and Trey Lance on top of that. I don't know. I don't see why. If I'm the Broncos or the Raiders or anybody else, I'll take Teddy Bridgewater on a $5-10 million deal than giving Jimmy G $26 million and Derek Carr. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't. To the Raiders part though, I think Josh McDaniels went there because he thinks that he can win with Derek Carr. I don't think. Yeah, I think he thinks that Carr is a good quarterback and he can win with him. I think that's why he took the job. Right. I don't think he's taking a job thinking that he's getting rid of Derek Carr.
Right.
Well, I like that idea Ray brought up. Carr for Jimmy. I'm fine.
I know you do. I know you do.
You and 49ers Nations loves that. And no one else.
We'll drive that man to the airport and personally.
Right.
Oh man. But yeah, that is pretty much our show. Everybody definitely had a great weekend with some football. We got a week off, so to speak. I don't really care much about the Pro Bowl. Is there a game or what are they doing for the Pro Bowl? I haven't seen any promo.
I know Josh Allen told him to kick rocks and that he didn't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, they're playing in Vegas.
It's in Vegas?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Well, the NFL is not doing a great job promoting. I haven't seen a commercial yet. I see
nobody cares about
Super Bowl halftime commercials, and I ain't even seen a Pro Bowl commercial. So that kind of tells you all you need to know about that. So yeah, we'll see what happened. We got our first, I guess, football week off since the season started. That's gonna be kind of different. Definitely get caught up on the NBA there. But before we get out of here, just want to get everybody's final thoughts. Kenny, what you got?
Man, it's the whole kind of almost into off-season mode to a degree. So I'm just keeping an eye out. We talked about it at the top of the show. I'm just gonna be still keeping an eye out on these coaching openings and and seeing what happens and seeing if we get some minority hires happening. I'm just gonna keep my eye out for that. Curious to see what's going to happen also with Deshaun Watson. Hopefully, I want to see his situation get resolved, to see him back playing football.
I heard some good stuff recently about.
Okay.
I heard some very good. They were interviewing one of the girls, and she did not. They call her up.
So yeah, so hopefully those are the two things that I'm gonna be keeping my eye on, and then of course, we still got a week before the Super Bowl, so those are the things I'll be keeping my eye on and seeing how these coaching situations are gonna work themselves out, and what's gonna happen with this quarterback carousel, and also also Tom Brady, because we don't know if this is all official now. Everybody we reacted, but now Tom is starting to tell us to pump the brakes, so we're gonna have to wait to see how that plays out. So
me and Ray did a whole 40-minute episode of that shit.
Man, yes we did. Joe, what you got for us?
being a 49er fan and being in our season just ended yesterday, I got a one-track mind right now. What are we going to do with Jimmy G? You know, what are we going to do? You got me all excited about this Derek Carr for Jimmy G deal. Now I ain't going to sleep tonight. You know what I mean? So I want to do some research on that to find out if that's true, because Josh McDaniels, it is official. He is the next Raiders.
Yeah.
That has been official. But yeah, what are we gonna do with Jimmy G, man? You know, that's the $40 million, the $26 million question.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I don't like nothing you had to say about that.
Sorry, sir.
But yeah, that's it. That's it for me, man.
Mike, what about you?
Got to know my guys today. Got to know Eberflus. Got to know Poles. Nice. I like the little conversations they were having there. Justin Fields. Got to see Justin Fields today. He emerged. You know, he's QB. He got announced on the podium as QB1. And when I heard that, I promise you, I was like, dude, if Andy Dalton walks out, I'm going home. I don't want to be here. I'm never gonna come here ever again, and I'll literally lose my mind. I'll air this whole place out. But it was definitely a good vibe, a good attitude, very intelligent football answers, which was very different to the car salesmen that were Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, just trying to feed you some bullshit. At the end of the day, you know, when you walk out that lot, your car is going to break down. But with these, they had intelligent answers, and they were real, and they spoke the truth. I'm excited to go to a 4-3 defense, and we'll see what happens with the Bears next year, especially if Rodgers leaves. But if Jim Harbaugh is going to the Vikings, like reports are coming out right now, that he will be going for his third interview tomorrow or Wednesday. We'll see what happens with that. But I think the NFC North is very close to becoming the NFC East of a couple years ago.
And to that point, and I'll ask this before we go, and I got some closing thoughts. What % chance do you guys give, with Kirk Cousins being up in the air, that Jim Harbaugh brings Cap in just for a look? Kenny?
5%.
Joe?
I don't want to give it a percent. I'll say this. If Cap has about as much chance of getting a look as I do. That's how much I think of that.
Fair enough. So I got two things. One of these is for Mike, and then one is for the rest of y'all. Definitely appreciate you know, y'all coming on. I know it wasn't easy for you, Joe. Tough game to watch and swallow, but as somebody who's been home since the playoffs started, welcome to the couch.
We got a spot for you, bro.
Welcome to the couch.
It's warm. We kept it warm for you, so you can enjoy the Super Bowl from the comfort of your home, even though there was way more 49ers fans in LA than Rams fans, from what I heard.
Yeah.
Which they got to do something about that. Like, that's unacceptable. I know LA is too cool for school.
It's the jersey colors, bro. It really is. It's the jersey. I'm not trying. I love Stafford, but I'm not getting a Stafford jersey with blue and gold. It's just not. That red just looks good, bro. It just looks good.
Okay, I'll let that go. Or let that be the reason. But that's unacceptable for me. The other thing is, my final take is, and it's not sports related, but shout out to A$AP Rocky and Rihanna for their child that they have coming on the way. He has won the race, so shout out to him. And my question for you, Mike, is the Donda Doves have their homecoming in Chicago. Are you going?
Yes, sir. I am going. I am going to be making an appearance there. We tried to get credentials for A$AP doing that. I haven't heard anything back from them. But again, I haven't heard from Kanye in a very long time either. So it's definitely something to be excited about. I think everyone should be attending that game. Tickets are $10. So go support those guys. It's crazy to me to think that they're dirt cheap, but it's going to be a big game. But I also have to go. If you don't know, A$AP did get credentials to me and Jay are going to be at LeBron James's son, Bronny James Jr. We are going to be at the game talking to them. Where they'll be playing Glendale something. I don't know. They're playing some suburban team in Chicago. It's going to be a big game. Hopefully we get to speak to Bronny and a couple other individuals there. So definitely check that out. And Rihanna. How dare you cheat on me? I was. You were supposed to be waiting for me to make it. How dare you?
Hilarious.
How dare you?
I, as a married man with 4 kids now, I still feel the same way. So
As you should. Ray, if she came to your door tomorrow and you abandoned all 4 of your kids, I wouldn't hold you, bro. I wouldn't hold you.
I appreciate that, and my wife would just have to understand.
I would be like, what would you have done? You know what I mean? Like if Ryan
there you
Gosling,
go. I couldn't even be mad if she left me for Rihanna, but
right? Ryan Gosling, Ryan Reynolds, Channing Tatum, whoever came at your door, Ray, I wouldn't hold her either. I would too.
I mean, they're not Rihanna, but I get your point. But fellas, it's been a heck of a show. We will do this again on Thursday. We will be previewing or picking. Well, no, we wouldn't have to pick. We'll be going through a couple different things. We got some NBA that we didn't get a chance to get to. Some Lakers stuff we can get into. We got some Grizzly stuff I will probably get into as well. They had a bad loss, in my opinion, tonight. So, yeah, thank you all for riding with us. Until Thursday, y'all keep it cool.
Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Network. All sports, all plays. Network. We on top of our game. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays.